Leopard cat covered in pens. Central. They have been there, but people have been monitored.
Hello, welcome all to the 61st Ananthakrishnan seminar series. Today we welcome Dr. Suresh Kumar. He's a wildlife biologist and a scientist F at the Wildlife Institute of India, which is under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change in Dehradun. So he has worked on the distribution and migration of several species across the Indian subcontinent and beyond, from macaques to birds to turtles. He has some interesting stories to tell. His PhD used satellite telemetry to understand the movements and migration of oil-ridley turtles. Yeah. And since 2008, he has been working as a faculty at Wildlife Institute of India. He took part in the Indian scientific expedition to Antarctica for conducting air surveys for marine mammals and birds. Let's hear more from him. It's an interesting story of how the monsoons and the monsoon winds connect to the migration, inter-hemispheric migration from Africa to South Asia and beyond, and going back. So let's hear this interesting story from Suresh. Thank you. Online participants as well. If you have particular questions, please post in the chat, and we will take it up by the end of the talk. Thank you.
So thank you so much. Thanks to Dr. Roxy for, in a short notice, he managed to arrange this particular event today. I'm extremely delighted to be here in the Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology. It's been a long due. I've known about this institution for many years now, and I have passed through Pune. I was just sharing with him a number of occasions, and I just saw the institute from outside, kept telling that I need to go to this place one day. And so today I'm here. So very, very happy. So what happens? See, I love telling stories. Most wildlife biologists tell stories. Okay, so we spend a lot of time out in the field and we observe so many things. And we do, in fact, keep drawing patterns. And we keep wondering, there is this curiosity in all of us, who end up doing research, extremely curious about what's happening in nature. So there are lots of stories that we end up thinking about, and maybe also creating those stories. And a lot of it is supported with facts, not hard facts, but gut feeling. You know that this is happening. This has to be happening because of this particular aspect. So today, one such a story is something like that. But the gut feeling that I've been having has been about for 10 years now. And over time, with reading quite a lot of stuff that other people are doing, like many of you are involved in physical sciences research, and I've been following on Dr. Roxy's publications, I see a complete overlap. I clearly see that what he's describing is actually being seen or shown, or the birds or the animals that I study are actually responding to these systems. So here is one such story that I'm going to be sharing with you. And I'm not going to bore you. I hope this is going to be interesting. And yes, you can definitely ask me questions at the end of the presentation. So the story that I planned today is on bird migration. Okay, just yesterday we had the World Migratory Bird Day. 13th of May was the World Migratory Bird Day. It happens twice in a year, once in autumn, sometime in October, mostly around 10th or 11th of October, and the other is during the month of May. So the month of May primarily responds, or refers to those birds that are returning back. Okay, so the winter season is over. Now summer is setting in, or we are already here in the lower latitude. Already there's summer. So many of the birds are on their return migration. So thankfully or coincidentally, my presentation is coinciding with the World Migratory Bird Day and all that. So there are about 10,000 plus species of birds around the world. And birds are one of the most successful animals in the whole planet. They have come to occur almost everywhere, in the hottest desert to the coldest places to the poles, polar regions. So they have amazing adaptability. Okay, and a lot of these birds that occur in all of these harsh, extreme climatic conditions do survive or able to survive because they also do show seasonal shifts in where they occur. And that's how bird migration has evolved. Bird migration has also evolved because of the ability of these birds to fly. So they move from one continent to another. So of the 10,000 plus species that we know, almost about 40% of these species to migrate. And many of them undertake long distance migration. Long distance migration is usually involving transhemispheric. So in one time of their life, they're up in the northern hemisphere, very close to the Arctic, and the other time of the year, they will be there in the Antarctic. So absolutely crazy why they should do that. Why should they go down all the way down to the Antarctic when you can very well stay around the equator where the year round the weather is more or less uniform? Why wouldn't they do that? Why should they go down all the way down to the southern pole? There are reasons for that. Okay, so anything that you see in nature, there is a story to tell. Most of it we are not able to tell the story, but there has to be a pattern, there has to be a story. Okay, so they're truly successful, and many of these birds during their journeys they have to cross inhospitable areas, okay, which are generally barriers. No one would dare to just go and fly across an ocean. They would not dare to cross a desert. Okay, so but still, given all of these limitations or the difficulty, the risks involved, some of these birds even do attempt that, and they do it successfully. They do it with all comfort and ease. So why is it that these birds are doing this? That I will tell you that story of it. And it is not that all birds are able to successfully cross these oceanic barriers or mountain ranges or deserts and things like that. A select few. So what is that select few? Why is it that these select few birds are able to do that, whereas the others are not able to do that? Is again a very interesting question to ask, and again a very interesting thing to understand. So India, we are currently, this landmass is blessed with diversity, right? Culturally also, we are a very diverse country, but in terms of biological diversity, we are very rich. We have amazing number of species. We have high alpine areas, trans-Himalayan cold deserts, to the coral islands, to the ocean. And across the spectrum of landscapes, you have a lot of species that reside along this. So if you look at the landmass of India, it's really packed in with so much, because we being a subtropical country. There are many other countries that are subtropical, right? But there is one another difference, and that is we are blessed with having the Himalayas. Having the Himalayas has literally shaped the climate of this region. And that has actually influenced how bird species come to occur here. So the Himalaya mountains alone, if you look at the altitudinal breadth. And if you look at the species that inhabit there, you will see a complete unique set of species occurring in these mountains, which do show altitudinal shifts or altitudinal migrations, and they would move up. So this kind of reminisces one of what is in the temperate landscapes in Switzerland or somewhere in the Alps in Europe. Okay, so we are blessed with all kinds of landscapes and all that. And having said that, a lot of, so in India, we have about 1,300 plus species. And of this, close to around 300 to 400 species are again migrants. And many of these birds come from the northern latitudes, from Russia, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, and all of these countries there. They will come down here to India. They will spend the time here in winter for 3 to 4 months, or in fact more than what they spend up there, okay, in the northern latitudes, where they go there to breed. But in the non-breeding period, they cross the Himalayas, come down here. Whether they directly cross the Himalayas or circumvent the Himalayas, it depends on what species. Most species cannot cross the Himalayas directly because it's too high for them. So anyway, once they're here, here is the time that they actually just relaxing around, getting good amount of food, and then they will get back. So like yesterday, the World Migratory Bird Day, many of these birds have already started on the return migration. But amongst this, there are a few birds which come to India, but don't stop here. This is not their final destination. They will leave this country and go off, okay, and come back again at a later time, pass through this area and go back to wherever they go to breed. So these birds are known as passage migrants. So we have birds that are summer winter migrants that will come down during the winter months, stay here and then go back. And then during the monsoon, during just before the monsoon, a few species will come up into the Indian region to breed. And then once they finish breeding here, they will go back. So they are known as summer migrants. The third type is the passage migrants, which are those species that are actually passing through India on their southbound migration or on their northbound migration. So we have a variety of all of these species that actually gives us a pattern. And when you will later during my presentation, you will notice that all of these stories have a connection to the Himalayas. Okay. And when I talk about the Himalayas, you will be able to relate to it later as to what is the story that has. So someone asked me, one of the team members asked me a question early during the day as to why are these birds undertaking these migrations, right? Why should they fly? Why should they travel so much? At the end of the day, survival of the fittest. If you are able to get enough food, then you're going to survive. You're going to be able to procreate. You're going to be able to produce more young and things like that. So this is linked to the seasons. When we have summer up in the northern hemisphere, you're going to have winter, complete darkness in the southern hemisphere. And this will reverse, right? So when it is winter up there, when it becomes very harsh, all of these birds will be moved, will have to move, will come down. So it's primarily linked to this. So why at all are all of these birds going up there during the northern summer? Simply being that during northern summer in the northern latitudes, the day length is much longer. It's 13 hours, 14 hours. And if you go very close to the pole, 24 hours flight. So the longer the day length, the more the food. So production in terms of insects or anything that they feed on is very high. But the only limitation is that it's only available for a short duration of time. So most birds that have evolved to go and breed up there, they are maximizing on that high amount of food that is available during a short period of time. So they have to quickly go there, finish breeding, and then move out, right? So there are many of these birds that adopt this strategy, and invariably all of these birds, their clutch size, the number of eggs that they will lay will also be higher, but they will only lay once. So their clutching during a breeding season is only once. But in a tropical climate like here, some of the birds that are there in your campus, they can breed 3 times. That is, they can lay three clutches, and their clutch size will be small because they don't have to have large clutches and raise so much of food, but there is not so much of food available in one shot. So they have to break it up. Here, the period is much more longer. The day length is shorter, 10 hours to 11 hours during the summer. But there it's much higher. So it's all about energetics. It's all about these strategies as to where you go and survive. Okay, sorry. This is a nice depiction of what happens. You look at the glacial melt up there, the snow melt, and see how the birds are funneling in. So you can see in Africa, the Sahara Desert, and see how the birds are funneling in through Israel. That's a very, very narrow corridor through which huge numbers of species will migrate through. You do not see that many birds moving in the middle of the Sahara in the northern Africa. Okay, see, so most of the migratory birds have gone up to breed in the northern latitudes, and now once they finish breeding, they're going to come down. Now, when it comes to the Tibetan Plateau and the Himalayas, this is a very, very high mountain range, right? And the Tibetan Plateau is also very high. So there is a lot of, it's generally hypoxic conditions all over there. And so many of the birds avoid this region and circumvent along the Himalayas. So they come into India from the west or from the east. And some of these birds also do oceanic crossings. Okay, oceanic crossings, which would entail them to fly non-stop for several days. That's not easy. It's a challenge. Okay, but they're able to do it. That's how nature has created them. So, like I was telling you, that when it is up there, winter in the northern hemisphere, it's summer down here. So the simple fact is that many of these birds which are doing these trans-hemispheric migration, they are primarily spending their time invariably always in an area where it is summer. So these birds never see winter. Okay, so when it is getting autumn there, they're down, they're coming down. And by the time they reach their southern non-breeding areas, it's summer. Okay, so they never see winter at all. So that's the story of this. So when I say that they're there in an area where it is always summer, which means they're there in an area where there is a lot of food all the time. And so they're able to, feed and survive much better. Okay, so there is no visual cues here at all for a bird that has to cross an oceanic span. Absolutely no visual cue. But we do know from research that they do use sun compasses, star compasses, magnetic orientation. So they do have those abilities to fly, to manage. You may have all of these navigation abilities, but still there is a physical effort. You need to still flap your wings. So there is a lot of energetic costs involved in undertaking these crossings. And some of these birds are terrestrial. They cannot land in water. If they happen to land in water, they're destined to die. So even after this, some of these birds are undertaking these kind of flight paths. Deserts, it's land, they can land there, but it's so hot, so difficult at times that there is no water. So it's very, very challenging for these birds. Like I told you, the Himalayas, very, very difficult. It is not just the hypoxic conditions, but localized storms, blizzards can happen. So birds that are trying to pass through or negotiate some of these areas may just completely get blown away in the storm and can perish. So it's a huge risk involved. But having said that, quite a number of birds that come down to Bigwan, here the wetland, here the big wetland, the bar-headed geese, holds the world record for flying straight over the Himalayas to reach to their breeding grounds in Mongolia. Okay? So even though all of these geographical barriers are there, some birds have evolved this ability to negotiate all of this. That is the beauty of nature, the way it is created. Okay, but even if it is there are definitely certain physical elements, winds, the right time of the day when they would need to make these crossings. Okay, so this has always been the question. Okay, how do they do that? Why are they doing this? Why are they not taking safer routes? Why do they have to fly across the oceanic basin? Why not follow the contour of a landmass and reach the shortest land bridge where there may be a shorter stretch of ocean or a gulf where they can just fly across? Many birds do that. A lot of birds do that. And the pattern that you would notice in that, mostly those birds are large bodied birds. And these guys cannot fly nonstop. They will have to make a night halt. Every day they will start in the morning, and by evening they have to find their distant wetland, wherever that which they know, they have to land there. Okay, so you will clearly see in some species, even though you will see that they have large wingspans, they do glide quite often, they do soaring flight, but still they don't make this kind of a crossing. So they don't take the safer routes. Now, why is it that some of these birds are risking it? And these are those birds which are taking benefit from the weather elements that are prevailing there. So I'll tell you that story of that little later. So all of this, today's subject, today's one of the species, focal species for this story today is the Amur falcon. Okay, so it's a small bird of prey. It's not, it's like maybe 1/3 the size of a black kite. Black kite, which you see commonly here, 1/3 or even less than that. It weighs less than 200 grams. The females are larger, the males are usually much lighter. In this is the case in all raptors. In raptors, the females are more heavier. Now, this bird, the name comes from the region called Amur, which is Far East Asia, just where that Manchurian steppe, just above that. And this is after this famous river called the Amur River. Okay, and this is also the area where the tigers evolved. And from there, the tigers radiated. They moved and they came to occur in India. Okay, so the Amur tiger, one subspecies of it, still survives in that area. Amazing forest is still there. Extensive logging is happening as I speak. But one of the true wilderness anywhere in the world is that region. Okay, so that's how this particular bird, it breeds there. So it gets its name Amur from that region. And so this bird comes down from there, comes into the northeast, and it's a passage migrant. And it goes down to South Africa. Okay, so during October, November every year, there is a lot of the sightings of these birds that we generally get from Northeast India, Nagaland, Manipur, and Assam, some select spots. And thereafter, a lot of sightings along the Western Ghats. And thereafter, they're gone. So before we initiated the study on this particular bird, all that we knew was that these birds come into the Northeast, come down to the Western Ghats, possibly hang around somewhere close by near Pune, and thereafter they will disappear, only to be seen again next year, October. So, having said that, people believe that this has a different route on its way back to the Amur region, which they thought is via Africa, move up towards Pakistan, Afghanistan, and not cross the Himalayas, because the Himalayas is supposedly a barrier for many birds. So they will go up along Kazakhstan and avoid the Tibetan plateau to reach their breeding grounds. So as a result, it has also got its name that it's an elliptical migrant. Elliptical migrant is not like, in the same route you go down and then the same route you come back. No. So on the return, you take a detour. You follow a different passage or a path to reach your breeding ground. Why would it do that? Probably is going to expend more effort to go in a completely different route. Why do they do that? Okay. So having said that, it's a passage migrant, trans-equatorial migrant. It is going to cross the equator, go down to the southern hemisphere, and it's an elliptical migrant. Okay. So now let me tell you. So one way distance from their breeding grounds to their non-breeding grounds is 20,000 kilometers. A bird which is weighing less than 200 grams is undertaking this. Phenomenal. Okay. Why do you have to travel so much? You could just stay here very much here in India, but no. Okay. So this is a video that I wanted to show you. So this video is of the Amur falcons coming into Northeast India, okay, in Nagaland and Manipur. A few places only, not everywhere in Nagaland that people know of these birds, only in few villages where people know. So what we have now come to know is that all of the world world population. We're talking about a million strong, a million Amur falcons. So as a result, because these birds are in such large number, so so uh, it's one of the natural wonders in the world, what we are seeing at this point of time. Every year for about 15 days in Nagaland, in select places, the way the Amurs will congregate, the entire skyline will be covered with birds. Okay? So see this? Every dot. This is only one frame. If you move around 360, you will be filled with birds. So the scale of the number of birds that are coming into the Northeast is unimaginable. You would wonder, so many birds are there, okay? Now the question is, why are they all funneling into this place? What is so special about this place? Okay, so for long, we never knew that this kind of congregation is taking place. But there are people in the past who had reported that Amur falcons come in certain numbers and the local people do hunt them and eat them. So this project that I undertook was actually as a conservation work to try and create awareness amongst people about these birds. This is the least concerned species as of now. It's not like your tiger or something where it is an endangered species. There's lots of funds available. This is the least concerned species, so nothing to really worry about. But the scale of hunting that happened in 2012 was so huge that we had to immediately launch an effort to stop people from hunting. So initially, this particular project was taken up to make people aware about the uniqueness of these birds. Okay, so today we know that this particular site where this is filmed is known as the Nagaland. It's in Nagaland. It's known as the falcon capital of the world, because nowhere else in the species range you would have all of the Amur falcons funneling in. Okay. Thankfully, I'm not going to go into the conservation story. Thankfully, the hunting has completely stopped. It's also backed by all of the data that we could generate on where these birds are going and trying to tell people. So it's so simple. If you want to make people aware about the importance of a species, you just go and tell him that the bird is coming from Siberia. How can a local person who has never been beyond his village, he only knows that there is this mountain ridge, he doesn't know any area beyond that, how does it truly matter to him that these birds are coming from Siberia? And so don't hunt it. So hunting has been as part of their lifestyle, right? But with data, including showing the maps, connecting the dots, connecting people with landscapes and places, we are able to change mindsets. And so that has happened. So that's a good story. I'm not going to go into that, but just to give you the scale that this is huge. And this is definitely one of the natural wonders in the world. Okay, nowhere else you see such kind of a congregation of Amur falcons. So coming to the story, I'm going to give you more in depth about what we know about these birds, is that they are breeding in the Manchurian steppe landscape, which is rolling highlands, okay, sparse trees and that you would see, some woodland, to all the way down to the African wells. This photograph is in fact taken in Lonavala by one of my friends when these birds stop over here. So this whole story has a huge monsoon connection. That's why I'm here today. Really excited to share that story with all of you, because you're all looking at monsoons and looking at winds and things like that. So this is going to be interesting. So in order to study this bird, it's not easy, simply because of the issue that they're very small. They weigh only about 180 grams, 150 grams. So if you want to put a device on it, it has to be less than 3% of its body weight. Thankfully, in 2010, after a few years, before a few years, we started this work. A company in the US came up with this particular tracking device. It's a satellite tracking device. So this unit is being tracked by satellites, polar orbiting satellites, and which will deliver the information to a ground station, and then it comes onto my computer to tell you where exactly is the bird. So managed to catch a few birds, not very easy, but managed to catch them and put these transmitters. They weigh 5 grams. The transmitters weigh 5 grams. What is so unique about it is that it has a solar panel. So it's getting charged every day and keeping the transmitter alive and sending us the signals of where they go. So over time, we could tag about 15 Amur Falcons. These are all very expensive units. Each of those units costs about 4 lakh rupees. And further, to get the satellite data, you'll have to invest another 2 lakh rupees. So almost about 5 to 6 lakh rupees has gone into. So you can imagine the first time when I'm putting one of these units, I'm not sure whether it's going to survive the day or a few days or something like that. But it was a huge risk. But thankfully, it all worked well. Okay. So across the northeastern hills, okay, they are not even coming into the eastern Himalayas, which is north of the Brahmaputra. This is all in the hilly sections south of the Brahmaputra, where these birds, those black stars, are places where they congregate in very large numbers. So we caught a few of these birds, 15 of these birds across these sites, and tagged them. So the first bird is always special, isn't it? The first time when you do anything, the results that you get out of it is always special. It's always something. So it was also so special. I told you, remember, that it was conservation related work, right? So we were trying to create awareness. So when we caught the bird, it happened to be a male bird. And then we put the transmitters on, and when we decided to let it go, we realized that we should name the bird. Okay, so perfect. Nagaland, Naga. It's a masculine name, a male Amur falcon, so we named it Naga. And then gave it to the chief wildlife warden of the forest department to release the bird. So he happily released it like a kabutar, and it flew away. So this was on 7th of November 2013. You can imagine the kind of excitement I would be having. What is going to happen next? Where is this bird going to go? Because there were other stories that we were trying to understand. Is this the only site where they will stop? Or there are other sites in the whole of Northeast that they would be stopping? Or where else are they going to go? So from on the 7th of November, we tagged it and released it. The bird stayed around for 3 days. 10th of November, it set out on its migration. It flew nonstop for about 5,600 kilometers. 5,600 kilometers in a span of 5 hours, 5 days and 10 hours. So the question was, if you look at the trajectory of its flight path from Nagaland down towards, say, Andhra Pradesh, it's 1,000 kilometer stretch. And the bird has flown over the Bay of Bengal. It's crazy. It's a land bird. It's a terrestrial bird. Why did it not take the terrestrial route? Why did it not enter through West Bengal and then cut across through Madhya Pradesh and come down? It actually flew 1,000 kilometers over there, and then it took a detour to the west, heading straight into Maharashtra, south of Pune. Okay, Pune and Satara, somewhere between that area. I do not recollect properly, but it is definitely over you. And as I speak today, Amurs are passing through your area, passing through IITM campus. Okay, they're on the return migration. So the bird flies over there, doesn't stop anywhere, and then the next major oceanic stretch is about 2,500 kilometers, 2,500 to 3,000 kilometers. It continues to fly. 3 days, non-stop. It cannot land anywhere. At least before that, it could land. It can land. But here it didn't. So this was absolutely crazy. Why would a bird like this take so much of risk and an oceanic barrier so visible still do this, right? So there is something that is facilitating all this, right? So this is the story, and just this story was alone enough to raise the value of this bird amongst the hunters and the people of Nagaland, to tell them that your bird is so don't hunt them. So they've stopped hunting them. That is as simple as that. Okay. So over time, I'm cutting the story short. Over time, what we have found is that all of these blue lines is that track routes when they're going down to south, that is to southern Africa. And then on the return migration, which is the red line, and you see the return migration, the line is slightly oriented towards the north. they pass through the Arabian Peninsula. They skirt the Arabian Peninsula and come into Gujarat. So if they are making entry into on their southbound migration through the northeast India, then they are making a re-entry on the return migration through Gujarat. Okay, and one of the birds in the first few years of my tracking happened to come straight towards Dehradun. I was actually wondering what's going on. So they seem to be crossing all over this area, but it's just that people don't see them as much simply because they're making non-stop flights. Many of these birds are also flying in the night when we are all sleeping, and they're flying at certain heights. Just a random chance that somebody might see it. As I speak now, we really don't know at what heights that these birds fly. It could be quite variable, but definitely a large number of them are guided by certain winds at certain heights, which I will come to. Okay. Now, in this entire passage, what we can clearly see is that from their breeding grounds to northeast India, their flight behavior is not non-stop. They would stop at many places, chill, relax, then arrive into northeast India. Once they are there in northeast India, they spend about 15 days. Okay, so this is from middle of October. It can go up to middle of November, almost about 20-25 days or a month that they spend. And thereafter, from here, when they start off on their orientation towards Africa, it's non-stop. So this we know is over the ocean. Now the same thing is happening after they arrive in Somalia. They're heading down to Africa. From Somalia to Africa, the behavior will again change. They're not making, they're in no rush to reach South Africa. Right next to Johannesburg, a few cities are there where there are these traditional roost sites. For years, people have been seeing them come and roost on the trees just around that town, but not in that great numbers as what we see here. There, the numbers are very few, maybe 5,000, 10,000 birds in a few of these places. So when they arrive there in South Africa, it is time for Christmas. 25th of December, many of these birds arrive. And the South Africans are celebrating Christmas without snow, while the people up there in UK are celebrating Christmas with natural snow all around, right? So the birds are there when it is summer, austral summer. And on the return, again, they will come back to Somalia. They will make a stop. Okay. Now here, when they return to Somalia, their pit stop is for a slightly longer duration. Now, then they will make this passage across India, which is non-stop, usually oriented up and then head off. Now, what is very interesting here, the bird that on its way down south stopped for about 20-25 days in northeast India is not seen in those sites again in that numbers. Maybe a few birds you might see moving around, but they don't stop. So on the return migration, they don't find northeast India suitable or not keen to spend time there. They're just flying off non-stop, which is the reason why people generally thought that these birds will only be seen the next year in October, November, once you have seen it this year. So that's the reason. It's simply that they don't stop. But why? Everything has to have a why question. There is a reason for it. Okay, so I'll tell you that, right? So what we clearly know in northeast India from the tracking data is that even in that scale, the way the birds are coming through is very interesting. They will enter through this famous valley called Imphal Valley, the capital city of Manipur state. They will come through that, and then they will take a northeasterly detour to go up into Nagaland. Now, along this passage, there are definitely mountain ranges which are blocking their path. So they are trying to probably, get in through those gaps and then come in. So if we are seeing Amur falcons in millions in Nagaland, it is actually through Manipur that they come first. Right now, the conservation awareness has become so huge there in these states that people are claiming ownership over who is doing more. Okay, whether Nagaland is doing more or Manipur is doing more. But the truth is that the birds definitely come through Manipur and then go to Nagaland. So the question is, if these birds are bound to go down to Maharashtra, why not stop over here in the mountains here? There are mountains here too. If mountains is something that they prefer, they should stop here. That's not happening. And the other very important thing, which is a behavior that is generally seen in most migratory birds, is that before undertaking a major crossing of an oceanic barrier or a mountain range, usually birds stop over just adjoining to it, like the way you notice in Somalia. In Somalia, just south of Mogadishu, there are some of those wooded areas where these birds stop, and it's just adjoining to the ocean. So they're waiting for possibly the right oceanic conditions to then make the flight. But here in India, it seems to be a different case. Ideally, we should have all of the world's amurs congregating there in say Pune or in Lonavala and all of these stretches, but you don't see that. You see them all up there, and from there they are undertaking these non-stop flights. Okay, so I've been saying that they're undertaking non-stop flights. We also know that it is not that all the birds are doing that. Definitely most birds are doing that, but a few birds do make stopover, which is why often people end up seeing a good number of birds in Lonavala and other places en route their migratory path. Okay, so moving on, what we also noticed with this tracking data is some of these birds that we tracked, we could track them for 3 to 4 years continuously. So they could go up and down, 3 years. Now this data, when you look at it, you will see clear congruence in their paths or in the sites where they will stop over. Year after year, they will go back to the same place to stop. En route their journey, they will also have their favorite stopover sites that they will stop. So these all indicate that there are clear patterns in where they will stop over. This is in the case of the breeding area. What really gets interesting is that's the non-breeding area, and this is the breeding area. In the Manchurian steppe, where they go to breed, there's a very interesting story. Birds that breed make their own nest, right? But not all birds. And this is one of those birds that does not make its own nest. Now it is dependent on another species which breeds there, but earlier to the Amur falcons arriving. Okay, so the Amurs arrive in these areas in June. First week of June onwards, they start to arrive. So there are a few species which is related to the crows that live there. There's a species known as the rook, and there is another which is known as the Eurasian magpie. They all make these thick nests, and they will also nest together in a social colony. So by the time the Amurs arrive, those birds have finished their nesting, are gone. So these birds, when they arrive, those nests are empty and they will occupy it. So it's very important for them to have these nests. Okay, and the timing is all about timing. So that's what we've seen, that every year one of our birds pinpoint same tree, possibly the same nest, because these nests are stick nests, and so they live for a long period of time and they are reused over and over again. So that's something that we found in this data. This is the kind of habitat there in the Amur region, the Manchurian steppe. But again, much of these areas are undergoing massive change. Large scale agricultural cropping is happening in these places. Okay, so we've still not answered the question as to why stopover in Northeast India in such numbers, especially in Nagaland and Manipur and not elsewhere, not in Maharashtra. Why? Okay, so the story here is basically that Northeast India is a major gateway. Okay, they're coming in here. Okay, so on the return migration as well as on the southbound migration, the Imphal Valley, there is a gap through which they come. Okay, and why make these non-stop flights? All of this has a connection to the Himalayas. Okay, so Nagaland and Manipur are very important, but this is again being influenced by the Great Wall or the Himalayas. Okay, and this is because of the monsoon connection. You know that the monsoon has, correct me if I'm wrong, but you know that the monsoon has evolved with the Himalayas actually forming, right? The entire Tibetan plateau, raised plateau, is heating up. And the Himalaya, which is acting as a wall, pulling up all the clouds that come in, they're going to be blocked by the Himalayas, and you're going to have monsoon all over India, right? Or at least major parts of. So the monsoon that we are talking about here is the southwest monsoon, right? Which is the big brother. But there's a little cousin of it, right? Which is the northeast monsoon or the returning monsoon. So When it comes to the Amur falcon, it's the northeast monsoon. But there are many other birds who have the story of the southwest monsoon, which I will not cover today. We'll tell some other day. So for the Amur falcon, it's the northeast monsoon. Okay. But the northeast monsoon is a result of the southwest monsoon, right? So the southwest monsoon is oriented towards the northeast and then all along the Himalayas, and it will dissipate. Now, after some time, post monsoon, sometime in October, November, the northeast monsoon actually builds up. Okay, and where? It builds up in the northeast, right? And I personally think, even if I want to popularize this story, I would say it actually builds up in Nagaland. Could be the case, somewhere in that region, it's building up. Okay, so now when you will see the tracks, the non-stop migratory paths of these Amur falcons, one of the individuals that I've plotted here to show you, across different years of its tracking, you can see how the paths are almost on the same line, right? Now, when I started trying to understand what is this, why are they doing this? This 5,600 kilometers that they have crossed, they are flying at a speed of about 45 to 50 kilometers per hour. Only then they can do this in 5 days and 10 hours. Okay. Now, the reason that they are flying in line, try to overlay this with the winds. And I'm talking about the northeast monsoonal winds, right? So it has originates in northeast. And if you look at the orientation, it is going to bring rainfall to Tamil Nadu. Many parts of Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, they get the rainfall only from the northeast. And if you look at the orientation, it's over the Bay of Bengal, and then it cuts across peninsular in India, and then goes into the Arabian Sea. And here in the Arabian Sea, it intensifies further and becomes the easterly winds, the trade winds. And these trade winds arrive in Somalia. All of your wildlife documentaries, if you're seeing any documentary of wildlife in Africa, they will first start off, everything is drama, right? So they will first show you with all the broken earth, parched earth, and it's dry, and suddenly there is a thunderclap and it starts to rain. Whenever they show, for me, it reminds me of the trade winds, the northeast monsoon winds, right? So that's the winds that is oriented in that direction. Okay, and so the Amur falcons are flying, are they riding these winds? They have a tailwind of at least 20 kilometers per hour. So a smart bird this is. It has to make an effort of 45 kilometers per hour to make this crossing, but it's actually benefited by these winds by 20 kilometers per hour. So the actual effort is only 20-25 kilometers per hour. Okay, that's why they're able to fly non-stop. That's why they are taking this as a route to pass through, even though the Arabian Sea visually is an oceanic barrier. But here, this is actually a facilitator. It is actually facilitating the migration of these birds, and which is why these birds are using these wind systems. Okay. Now, if you see on the return migration as we speak now, the southwest monsoon is still 1 month away. It's still somewhere down in the southern Indian Ocean, and still probably along Madagascar or something, I don't know. So, but the birds have to return. They cannot wait till the southwest monsoon. Remember, I told you, they have to be there in June, 1st of June, first week of June. They have to be there to start their breeding, because northern summer is already setting in, and they have a very short window of time to breed, finish, and get out, right? So if they wait for the southwest monsoon, they will be horribly delayed. The other important thing is the southwest monsoonal winds coming into India may or very likely is oriented differently than what it is right now. So on the return migration, what you will notice from mid-April onwards, all the way till mid-May, you will see these birds cutting through like this. They're skirting the Arabian Peninsula. Okay, so in this month, in April or middle of April onwards, in Dehradun, I usually witness a strong dust storm coming from the west. And these winds are primarily coming from what I believe are coming from the Arabian Peninsula. Okay, it's usually the hot time of the year when all of the sal leaves, tree leaves, they're all dead and they're waiting to fall, and these winds will come and blow it away. And that's exactly the winds which the Amur falcons take benefit and arrive in. Okay, and see here, you can clearly see the orientation of these winds. So if you notice, the winds are oriented towards Gujarat. So they skirt the Arabian Peninsula and then enter into Gujarat. Okay, and thereafter, once they are in Gujarat, they continue to fly and they return back. So clearly, this we see these winds, shift changing across these two periods. It's possible that on their southbound migration, they're flying at a certain height, and on the northbound migration or return migration, they're flying at a certain height. The limitation in our data set at this point of time is we don't know at what height these birds are flying. But from a generic understanding, we know that it's somewhere between 850 HPA and 700 HPA, something around that they could be flying. Okay, so definitely these birds are taking these routes because of the wind assistance that they get. Okay, so what we generally think are ecological barriers are actually facilitating the migration of these birds. Okay, now the other pattern that you would have also observed is that all of these birds are headed to the Great Horn of Africa, which is Somalia, right? Now, if the birds have to go down to South Africa, which is their final destination, why can't they just go from here straight down to Southern Africa? They're able to fly over the ocean. This here energetics comes to play. Remember that they are there in the Northeast for close to 20, 25 days, 20 days maybe. Now, during this time, they are definitely not just resting, they are fattening up. They're putting on fuel reserves to fuel their journey. Now they are able to only eat so much or put on fat reserves that much that is available to them for a period of 6 days, not 10 days, not 7 days, not 8 days. It's all energetics. It's all about how much you can grow. You can't grow so fat that you're not able to fly. So you will only put on that amount of weight and then you make this. So considering that, the shortest distance to reach into Africa will be actually Somalia, which is 3,500. There may be a few birds still trying to attempt this, which we do know because of site records coming from Seychelles, British Indian Ocean Territory, or from Maldives. There are a few site records, which is off the way, off the track. But maybe after going down there, they might do a course correction and get into Tanzania. They could do that. Some of these birds might be just gliding with these wind systems. We don't know. But a majority of them are taking this route, which is the shortest route to reach from the west coast of India to Somalia. Okay, so Somalia becomes extremely important. Now, what I have come to understand is also that if Nagaland is the falcon capital of the world, that is on their downward or southbound migration. On the return migration, Somalia, those areas just south of Mogadishu, definitely are having huge congregations of these birds. Unfortunately, it's such a disturbed country that we don't know what is going on there. Okay, now nature keeps surprising us all the time, right? So when everything started to fit in very well, okay, they go down this way and they will come back this way. There's this one particular bird which was one of the last birds that I tagged. The female, she was heavy, she was good, but because the time it took us to process this bird, put the tag on, and finally when we released it, this bird appeared to be in a state of shock. When I released it, she didn't fly away. She just went and sat up on a tree and then watched us for some time. So I was not too very happy with the whole feeling, wondering that she might not actually be able to make it. But she completely surprised us because she's the longest tracked Amur falcon in this amongst the 15. And she made 7 times the crossing up and down the Arabian Sea. And she did some really, what I would say, very interesting stuff, which I could never imagine. And what she did, while most birds come to Gujarat and will head towards the northeast, this bird will come all the way down till the Saurashtra coast or Bandar. And instead of making landfall, she will skirt that and head towards Mumbai. And then after arriving in Mumbai, she would go down to southern India. And in fact, it's almost like connecting with my roots. I'm from Tamil Nadu. And some of those places where I had gone as a kid, on a picnic or some of those hill areas, Kolli Hills and Shevaroy Hills in southern India, these birds ended up going to those places. So it was like literally connecting with my past. Okay, so let's just see this. Okay, goes down. So I told you that this is the longest tracked bird. And across 4 years of the tracking, every year the bird does the same. It goes down to southern India. So why is it that while all of the other amurs are heading off, why is it that it is coming down to southern India? And in fact, I believe right now the progeny of this particular female may all be heading down from Pune, going down to southern India. And then they're heading off. Simply because there were a few thunder showers. There was rain here. There was rain in Coimbatore. And I know that it is raining in parts of Bangalore and in the outskirts of Bangalore. All of this rain is influencing these birds' decision to go down south. Okay. Now, across all of these years, it went to these spots. There was another very interesting pattern that I started to observe. Every time that this bird would arrive and start to take a detour heading down towards Bangalore and to the south, I see on the newspaper, I see on the internet, the IMD reporting that there is a low pressure depression forming in the southern Bay of Bengal. Okay. And invariably, when this bird was there, a cyclone had formed. And the cyclone is headed up towards the Bay of Bengal. Okay. See this. When the bird was there was thunder showers. This is like pre-monsoon showers. It was there. Again, in 2018, it was not much, but it was there in those areas in Mudumalai and a few other places in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Kerala border, where it was localized rain was there. Okay. Cyclone Fani, okay, is one in 2019. Cyclone Amphan. Okay. The Cyclone Amphan story, the bird arrived earlier, but the IMD had been reporting that there is a cyclonic formation that is happening. But it was not, as per prediction, it was still inactive. It was not moving up. But the bird had arrived. It was waiting. It was literally waiting for the cyclone to come. Then I think it lost patience and it headed off. Okay. But with Cyclone Fani, I'll tell you the story. This bird was almost going to fly into the eye of the storm. Okay. I could clearly see that it had coordinated its movement such a way that the cyclone Fani is moving up and it is making landfall. As soon as it made landfall, just hopped onto those tailwinds. And with those tailwinds, I think it got a burst of speed, just zoomed off straight across to the northeast. So across this 4 years of my tracking of this bird, every year when it is starting off its flight from Somalia, I was sure that there is going to be a cyclone coming. And true to what I had observed, there was definitely a cyclone coming. And so these birds are able to predict cyclonic formations or low pressure depressions way ahead, that they know there is something going to happen there. It's not just a pattern. I'm sure they're sensing these changes in the weather across a much larger landscape. Okay. Another bird in the cyclone Amphan year, when this particular long-legged bird had moved off, this other one was on its way back. It was delayed on its journey. So this particular bird, just imagine that this is Cyclone Fani, which is moving towards Odisha and then making landfall. It also again came to Chhattisgarh. It stopped for a night and then it was flying off towards Odisha border. It had covered 200 kilometers from its stopover in Chhattisgarh towards Odisha. There is this place called Badrak. Okay, it was heading in that direction. Believe me, as I say this, the cyclone had come in. Because the cyclone had come in and this bird was heading in that, it turned back and went back to Chhattisgarh, waited there for the cyclone to make landfall. And once the cyclone made landfall, it's quick, back there, hit the tailwinds straight to the northeast India. So these birds are extremely smart. They're using tailwinds to make their journeys across each of these places. Okay, so that's about the last bit of the story that I'm going to share with you is why stop over in Northeast India? This has a monsoon connection, but it is not direct, it is indirect. And what is that? So we definitely started to realize that these birds on their epic migration journeys are not stopping here just to take rest, not just because they're tired having flown some 5,000, 6,000 kilometers. They are here definitely because they are finding something to eat. And so we ended up trying to research that. All raptors, many of the raptors, what they would do is that they would regurgitate the undigested parts in the form of a pellet. They will vomit it out. They do defecate, but they would not take all of these hard calcareous parts of whatever that they're eating into their intestines, because it's not going to be digested anyway. So it's of course crushed up, made it rolled up into a ball, and it is spat out. And these birds are roosting in these areas. So all that we needed to do is go every morning, walk down in those areas where they roost. By then they would have left. Go pick up these pellets, come to the lab, analyze them. Surprisingly, we found huge numbers of insects, but that we knew that they're insectivorous raptors. In their breeding and non-breeding grounds, they can switch their diet. They may switch to mammalian diet, small rodents and stuff. But here in Northeast India, it's full of insects. But what is really, really interesting was that it was not all insects. 95% of what they ate was termites. And you all know that either prior to the monsoon or prior to rains, you will see the termites emerge in huge numbers, right? So it has a strong, termite emergence has a strong relation to rainfall activity. Okay? And that's exactly what was happening here. And I told you, monsoon season is over and there is a period of no activity, and then the monsoon starts to build up. Okay, so just before or just after the monsoon had completely rained on, completely wet the entire northeastern hills, there is a dry phase. It is during that dry phase when the termites will start to emerge. The nuptial flight, or what we call the winged termites, will emerge. So if you're talking about 1 million Amur falcons coming here, then you're talking about billions of termites emerging there. Unbelievable that will be. But what is really interesting is that termites are also smart. They also know that there are people out there to eat them up. Okay, so they will only emerge in the later part of the day, in the evening, around 3:30 onwards. And each termite mound, you will not have any ant hill or termite hill that you will see there. There, everything is subterranean. They just cannot afford to make those mountains because it's a high rainfall zone. Every evening, you will suddenly see that the ground is cracking up. I mean, from each of these cracks, you will see lots of termites emerging. Okay, and so their emergence will be only timed for about 15 minutes from one particular crack. 15 minutes. How many other ellets or winged termites that the soldiers and the workers can push them and release them. If they are not able to send everybody out, quickly close. That 15-minute window is over. It's only tomorrow that they will release them. So this story of life goes on for the next 15 days. And this is closely associated with what has happened with the monsoon and then the post-monsoon. And so when these termites emerge, we know that aaj sham ko 3:30 baje wo niklega. The Amur falcons know that. So through the day, they will be sitting there idle in those trees, resting it out. They know that only in the evening that emergence will take place. And when the emergence takes place, or just prior to the emergence, we know the Amur falcons will start flying, hovering over, helter skelter. You will see they're all getting restless because they're hungry. They won't eat. Okay. And then once the emergence takes place, oh, it's just feeding frenzy. They're just eating, gorging up on termites after termites. Okay. So termites are high protein food. Most animals that don't eat insects also, during that period, they will start eating, including humans, including people. Everybody eats termites. So now my respect for termites has just shot the roof. Literally, termites rule the world. If you really want to study Amur falcons, we need to study termites first. Okay, and so the climate system, everything has a connection here. Okay, so Amur falcons not only stop over here to rest, but more importantly to refuel. Now, this is the story why the termite emergence is taking place there in Nagaland in October, November, and it is not taking place here in Maharashtra during that period because there is no rainfall activity. The monsoon has long passed, and the termites here don't emerge in that same fashion as what they were emerging there, which is the reason why they don't stop here. Okay, and something like this or some other insect species may be actually driving Amur falcon stopover in Somalia. It could be locust outbreak. Locust is what generally is reported, but there could be even termites too in those areas, but it's poorly studied. Okay, so we did one bit of research because we were curious, what are these termites? And that actually opens up into a completely altogether new world. Like I told you earlier, respect for termites is just shot off the roof. Okay, so started digging up one of these areas from where these cracks are. The first thing that we ended up was, it looked like we were digging up in a cemetery. We were getting brain cases. Okay, so we thought we are some World War II had its influence in Nagaland and Manipur. Okay, so we thought we were digging up brain cases. But what is unique here is these are not brain cases. They appear like brain cases, but these are actually uh, these termites are very uniquely known for cultivating their own food. So what you see there as termite, the brain cases are nothing but fungal combs. They make a termite is able to make such intricate brain-like structures to grow fungus in it. And that fungus is harvested to feed the young. And so the new lot of termites emerge. Okay, so this is a very unique species which is known as Odontotermes. What's interesting again here, the same Odontotermes is found everywhere, but not in that densities that you would see in Nagaland or Manipur. And that is why the scale of emergence of these termites is very high. And now in southern India, as the thunderstorms appear there is some amount of termite emergence activity, which is why those birds like longlang and a few others end up there, feed, and then head off back to northeast India. So termite swarming, okay, in northeast India is influenced by the monsoon, and it is also the time when the Amur falcons arrive. So the Amur falcons in this entire range that they are moving between, they know those few select spots in Nagaland and Manipur where you will get abundant of termites. Okay, huge abundance of termites. That is how this whole story has evolved. So it's literally the migration fuel for the Amur falcons. So they go through this, what we generally known as hyperphagia. If you talk to the local hunters, they would say, these birds are not good to eat when they will arrive because they're very bony. There is no flesh. But when you will eat them just before they leave, it's full of fat, full of oil. And that full of fat and oil is nothing but the migration fuel. So if you catch some of these birds in Somalia, in the initial phase when they arrive in, you will see that they have lost out all of their fat reserves, and now they will have to switch to a different mode of foraging more, stopping over, not take long flights to northeast India. Okay, so apparently this year's theme for World Migratory Bird Day is protect insects. You will protect birds. So the focus is on insects. A lot of these insects, which is poorly studied, massive declines. How the termite emergence is going to be influenced by land use changes that are currently taking place. More importantly, especially you guys are studying about climate and changes in climate patterns or wind patterns, how this monsoonal pattern in a particular year, if it is going to be a weak monsoon, how is it going to influence termite emergence? And how is that going to in turn affect the Amurs? And I suspect that in all of those years, many of these birds that are attempting to cross the Arabian Sea would be going down into the Arabian Sea, may not be in a position to make it across. Okay, so to conclude, they're passing through northeast India for refueling, no doubt about it. Most people generally think that they're resting. No, it's not just resting, they're refueling there. And so these stopover sites are so crucial for these birds. It is actually going to dictate how successful they are going to be in able to cross across to Africa. They're clearly fueled by the trade winds. Their flights over the ocean, Arabian Sea crossing, is not that they are just evolved to fly just like that. In fact, the Arabian Sea is facilitating their ability to make these non-stop flights because of the monsoonal winds. So I'll just end with this photograph. This is the photograph that I share with academic audience as well as with just common people to tell them the story. So in the first year, 2013, I was extremely nervous. I was going for the first time to Nagaland to catch these birds. I never caught an Amur falcon in my hand. Caught these birds, put the transmitters on. So the first bird, the big boss was there from Chief Wildlife Warden. So handed Naga to him and he released it. The second bird, we named it after this particular district in Nagaland. It's called Woka. We wanted to give locality names so that people are able to relate to it. So we gave the name Woka, and I and a colleague of mine from abroad, both of us opted to release that bird. So that bird gave me a very hard nip in my finger before it flew away. It gave us good data. Now the third bird, it all happened just at that moment. We decided, okay, why not we give the name of this village? And the name of that village is Pangti. And that village was very famously known for having killed huge numbers of these Amur falcons the previous year. But thankfully, before the birds arrived, we had won over the people and they had promised that they won't hunt. There was a little bit murmuration that, hey, what the heck is these people are catching these birds for science, but they're not allowing us to catch the birds for food. We're hungry. This is what we've always been doing, right? So imagine, look at the way people think. And it's correct, they're right. So this bird, we put on the transmitters. Then I realized that we have done the honors of releasing these two birds. Why not we just go call the local people? So I sent my colleagues in the department to the village, it's not very far away, to get all of the people down there. And many of them came down and we handed over the bird to the village headman saying that you can release this bird. We have named this bird Pangti after your village. So he happily accepted this bird. I was holding it with him. Just when he was about to release the bird, most of Nagaland are Christian faith. 99% of them are Christian faith. So in this entire conservation awareness work prior to this activity, there was the church pastor who was actively engaged with us in creating awareness about these birds with whatever little knowledge that he had. And he used to preach every Sunday Mass, post the prayer. He used to preach about conservation, about protection of birds and things like that. So he suddenly said, no, stop, don't release the bird. So why not release the bird? He said that we have to wish the bird well. We have to pray for the bird before it is released so that it can go safely wherever and return back to Nagaland the next year. So I literally had goosebumps. Many of these guys standing there had actually eaten Amur falcon the next year. But here's a story where they have started holding out the bird and they prayed for the bird. And you know the way they would, as they start to pray, they chant very loudly. I was literally feeling very unique, very different about it. Think of the words. That bird went down to South Africa, came back to the Nagaland, the same village next year. They all believe it's because of their prayers. Fantastic. This is what exactly you need to believe. So this is a famous story, absolutely famous story. No such conservation, no such change has actually happened anywhere in the world. Lots of other issues, challenges everywhere. People have been pumping huge amounts of money, but not to the scale that this has happened. And it not only created awareness in that village, every other village in Nagaland where Amur falcons stop over, they all started approaching me saying that I should come to the village, catch birds and put transmitters on them and name the bird after their village. That's how the name Longleng for that one another village. So from Nagaland, it moved to Manipur. The Manipuri guys started calling saying that we also have Amur falcons. We are also protecting Amur falcons. You should come and showcase our efforts. We are also protecting. So I went to Manipur and put tags on those birds, gave us some wonderful data. So what has happened is over the years, they continue to have this enthusiasm. The way they are looking at the Amur falcons now is way different from what they are seeing. In fact, they don't even think about their state bird. Their state bird is again a very unique bird known as Blythe strogopen, very rare. It's an endangered species. Nobody cares about it as much as what they care for the Amur falcons. Okay, so this is amazing, and this is the last slide. Wanted to show you So thank you. And the Amurs will continue to come every year.
For questions? Quite
Very inspirational, your talk. Actually, I follow the RNA Rishi, Maruti Chittampalli. He has lot of experience in his wildlife. Then after all, this is your second lecture. I inspired how you are track the Amur falcon and how their migration, and what I want to know that uh, what are the predators of this bird,
So
and
they per se don't have predators per se, but they have nest predators. There are quite a few species of owls that will pick up their young, will pick up their chicks. So they per se don't have any predators. And the other reason that they also don't have predators is that they are very social. They are always living together. If they see a predator, they will always go together and mob them and chase it away. So no birds actually take it.
they are helping the biodiversity of their breeding place to the South African,
Helping.
helping or modifying or something like sometime they are eating some fruits or
So
something.
if you look at the Amur falcon, forget about the area where they are. Wherever they will be, they are in huge numbers. Okay, but in the breeding areas and non-breeding areas, they are dispersed. They are scattered over a much larger area. But these birds are providing huge amounts of ecosystem services. Just imagine if the Amur falcons are not there to control or check the population of termites, what would happen? Nature has created termites for, we all look at termites as a bad thing, right? They eat up all of our furniture and all. If there is infestation, tomorrow we'll start spraying. But they are created to break down whatever dead and decaying, right? So they are providing important service by recycling it. But their populations will grow. So somebody has to keep a check on them. That's how the Amurs have come into the picture. So without the Amurs, how these landscapes are going to be is a big question mark. And there are no termites in Mongolia. Okay, Mongolia is too cold a place, but there are locusts in Mongolia, and they have these outbreaks, major outbreaks of locust swarms. And so the Amur falcons come in there to
Mongolia or
control that.
Somalia?
Mongolia, Mongolia also, northern latitude also. Yes,
Are there?
yes, yes. So Somalia again, you have locust outbreak. You go down to Africa, there are termites. But again, my understanding of how the precipitation there and how the termites are playing a role, I don't have. But whatever little studies on diet of the Amur falcons from southern Africa, termites are not represented in that much in their diet. It's mostly other insects like beetles and a few other insects like bollworms that they feed on. And those again are responding to the rainfall very differently. So we will need to do a very broad spectrum of how the rainfall pattern across and what insects are emerging where. But wherever they are going, they are definitely playing a huge, very important service of keeping check in all of those insect populations.
Season over the East Equatorial African region, like Tanzania, Kenya. March, April, May is the monsoon season, and after that, there may be the outburst of locusts may be witnessed. So
Yes.
they may line
Yes.
over the Somalia.
Yeah.
That is
No,
coincidence with it.
Correct. So in fact, in my presentation, I missed out one very other interesting story, which I completely shot it down, is that there is a dragonfly which comes to your campus also at this point of time. Possibly they have not arrived, but they will arrive just before the monsoon. Okay, and this is known as a globe skimmer. And scientists generally believe that this holds the record for the longest insect migrant known anywhere in the world. They are headed all the way. In Malayalam, they call it tumbi. Tumbi for, of course, for all dragonflies, but this one, as a young boy, I used to catch one of these birds, tie a thread to it and release it. So every kid did that in my generation. So anyway, so coming to this dragonfly, they are coming here and they are supposedly going down all the way to Africa, southern Africa to breed, and then, to winter and then come back. Okay. Now, in this case, there are multiple thoughts. it's not the same individual which is making this entire journey. It is several generations. Okay, so the populations that breed in the Himalaya, in the foothills in Dehradun and all, they will go down all the way till maybe Maldives, breed there and die. The young from, they also have a nymph stage in water, aquatic stage, which is much more long. They will emerge and they're genetically programmed to fly only southwards. They will go down to Africa, breed and die. And the next generation from there will come down till Kenya and then supposedly come back. Okay. Now, let's not think about that story. But what we definitely know is that these dragonflies are also flying in swarms and they're taking those trade winds. Okay. Because people who've been traveling in ships and boats in this area have noticed that large swarms of these birds, these dragonflies crossing. And so many people were thinking that the Amur falcons and other birds, Amur falcons definitely are actually following the dragonflies and are going chomp, 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 chomp. Okay, it's nice to hear that. But if that was the strategy, then why would they spend 1 month fattening up? They would definitely not spend 1 month. They could have just left immediately if there's going to be so much of food that is available all through that flight path, catch one dragonfly. No. Catching a dragonfly and you have to process it. It's not like catch it and put it in your mouth. Even a termite, when they catch it, they will catch it with their talon and then they will try to get off the wings, the head, then consume the rest. And they will not consume it as a whole. They will make small pieces out of that also. So dragonfly is at least 4 or 5 times larger than the termite. So there will be a lot of processing thing that's going on there. They wouldn't do that. So my gut feeling is that they're definitely not feeding on those dragonflies headed down in that direction.
Can you pass?
Hi, is this audible? Yeah. I had a couple of questions, one about the energetics and one about the influence of the monsoon winds on their flight paths. About the energetics, I was thinking not specifically about the Amur falcon, but initially when you showed that animation of the north-south migration, right, the trans-hemispheric migration of other birds, a lot of them are going up along the northern coast of Siberia. So I know you said that essentially, I think your argument was that time of day is a limiting factor for productivity. But in terrestrial ecosystems, we usually talk about temperature and not light being a limiting factor for productivity. So I wouldn't expect birds to go that far north because
You wouldn't expect.
Wouldn't expect because I would think that just the drop in temperature would mean that there'd be a lower net primary productivity at the ecosystem level. So are those like predating on a maroon food web or something? Because
So we are talking about, if you from your reference relating to that first image, it's actually composed of a lot of species. Okay, it's just a visualization to show many of these species are moving up there, right? There are birds which are insectivores. There are birds which are benthic foragers. Okay, it could be zooplanktons that in those lakes that are there, they could feed on that, and there could also be predatory birds which feed on these birds. Okay, so they're also moving up there. Now, understand this, it is not just about the temperature. It is more to do with the day length. So the more higher that you go, the day length gets longer. So the longer the day length, more food production. It's that way. If you're talking about temperature, birds are well insulated.
I'm not interested in the birds temperature. My understanding was that if I look at vegetation and I look at the productivity of vegetation, there is a dependence on temperature, there's a dependence on available light.
Correct.
The photo period is increasing as I go forward, but the temperature is decreasing, and so the vegetation growth would decrease, and that would limit the whole ecosystem.
So if you will see, it's relative. Okay.
Right.
So northern summer, as the summer starts to progress, as the day length increases, you will have the temperature also will increase.
Okay.
It's not like the temperature is lower. In Antarctica, when I had gone, it was 20 degrees on one of those days.
But if I compare someplace like India during its summer to someplace like the northern edge of Siberia during its summer, I would still expect higher productivity here, right? So I don't understand why the bird would go all the way to the polar region.
Right. So when you talk about productivity here, the productivity is scattered.
Okay.
Whereas the productivity is concentrated.
Right.
Okay. So that's why most of these birds are going up there, because they are assured of food in that particular area. But closer to the tropics, closer to the equator, the food that is available year round. It is not like having that seasonality in their availability, and it is scattered. So there is a lot of effort involved in searching for that food, and it cannot support large populations of birds in that area. So whatever resident birds that are there, which can subsist and survive, their populations are being controlled. Many of these migratory birds which are going up there, huge numbers that they are. And so just the sheer numbers will also is also dictating them to head up there, to feed in those areas where there is assured supply of good amount of food, though it's for a limited period of time.
Okay. For the second question about the routes they follow and how that's correlated with the winds, I wanted to ask: do you think that it's a kind of passive advection where basically they're just gliding on the winds, and wherever the winds go, they will be carried physically by the winds, or do you think there's an active role by the bird in which
They're not flapping much.
they're not flapping?
They're just hitting those jet streams,
Right.
holding the wing straight, move.
So if you do, I don't know if you're familiar, in oceanography, we do this very often. I don't know about the atmosphere, where you do these things which are called Lagrangian tracking simulations,
Okay,
where you take a parcel of air or water and you see what its trajectory is.
right.
It would be interesting to see. I think there are packages where you can do this automatically for the atmosphere from the data to see one of the trajectories of an air parcel overlaid to the trajectory of whichever bird you
I
have.
think that's why
It would
I'm
be a
here
cool
for
thing
giving
to
some
look
of
at.
these thoughts,
Yeah.
scale it up at different levels.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely right. Could possibly be happening.
Okay.
And like I said again, it's all about energetics and raptors, falcons. They do a lot of glide flight. They
Right.
don't flap, which is why a bird like a common crane or a geese cannot take up flights like this, even if they will have tailwind.
Well,
Because
why
just to stay afloat, they will have to flap.
if that's the case, why do you think Longlen is having a different trajectory from her fellows? Wouldn't they all be carried in? Like she was heading south when the others
Yeah.
were not, right?
So the reason could be that she's a female bird, right?
Yeah.
And female birds are not in a rush to reach their breeding grounds. She has to invest a lot.
Right.
The males have the responsibility of going and getting hold of those nesting locations, those nests. And so they need to rush there first. And once they've held on to the territory, then they will impress upon the girls when they will come. Okay. And if I doubt that these guys are monogamous. Okay. They're not pairing for life. Don't think so. They're also short lived. I don't think they survive more than 6-7 years. They might be dying off. So having said that, they don't maintain this monogamous pairs. And so the males will be going and holding onto the territories, waiting for the females to arrive. So the females, knowing that their nests are already going to be there, so they will spend some time, they will arrive a little later than the males. I'm popularizing it, okay? In terms of data, I really don't have that much of data, but this could generally be happening.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
I have a question actually. So once you showed the trajectory of Longlang, I believe it was. So you said it was waiting for the cyclone to pass by and then it made the return, right? So I was wondering, and while they're going towards South Africa from northeast, so do they also pass by these lakes to the Chilka, this another hotspot for migratory birds, or in general, how do these lake dweller birds, migratory birds, they're different from whatever you showed us?
So they do pass through Chilika. They do pass through Chilika. They may cross. Many of these birds are crossing, but the general orientation is they're near Vishakhapatnam. They're taking a turn. They're taking a detour. It's something to do with the coastline, the curvature, and I think how the winds are coming in. Okay, we probably need to model that to understand exactly why most of these birds are taking a turn down there. They could even head down further south. Don't know. So the migratory birds in those areas does not necessarily have to have an influence on these birds. Okay, and they are just passing through these areas. This is all that I can tell you with regard to your question. Okay.
Two more questions. Then we will have chai also here.
Happening and weakening of winds due to the El Nino and La Nina affect their trajectories in any way?
Absolutely. When I see the word El Nino or La Nina, apparently the La Nina is already set in motion. So I think these are very important things that's happening. How this is going to influence at a highly local scale here. We know that it is having an influence because it all seems to be connected, but we do need to do a lot more tracking study. Tracking study is one part, but I think I would focus more on the termites. I think I need.
Actually, El Nino and La Nina influence the monsoon onset, progression, and the strength of the monsoon. So definitely there could be some strong connections, but I think we might need more years of data, and or we can probably model that.
I was just wondering, yeah, what exactly triggers their say onset journeys? I mean, return journey from Somalia. What exactly triggers their return journey? I mean, whether it's full of the stomach or some, some teleconnection that I have to return back to. What is the trigger? Yeah, what it triggers and what are the factors?
Okay, so what we know is that there are
reach in June,
there are-
first week of June.
yes, you're right. So the first thing, it is all relating to hormonal changes that is taking place. Okay, it happens across the face, and these hormonal changes are directly influenced by how much of light is getting into the brain. Okay, the biological clock. So they are sensing the day length. Now imagine they are there in the breeding area, right? They are breeding. Now they know that every day the day length is about 12 hours, 13 hours. But after some point of time, the day length starts to reduce. And because of that declining day length, the hormonal activity sets in. And what we know is there is a, because of this hormonal changes that is taking place, most birds, there is a restlessness behavior that sets in. Okay, there is a German word for it, which is called Zugunruhe. They have done in experimental setup in a planetarium, change the complete setting of where the sun compasses and moon compasses are, and tried to do this. And they found that they show restlessness behavior, and that is because of the hormonal changes that's taking place. That dictates when they should leave. Of course, there are those other elements like whether the winds are ideal, right? That 10 days, 1 week window of time, they do may take an advantage, or they may wait, they may delay. Those things are, but getting ready to return from the southern African region all the way till Somalia, it is all pre-planned, much ahead it's taking place. Yes.
Yeah, because seasonal changes are constant always. I mean, day length are constant.
It's the day length is changing because of the season.
I mean, just yeah.
Because of the season. So if you have winter there, then after winter you're going into spring, and then summer.
These are hormonal.
Yes.
Hi, sir. I was really fascinated by the birds' behavior and predicting the cyclones from far behind. So, is that the long line was the only female you have tracked, or were there other females as well? And my question is, like, she was taking different route while returning, and she was using the tailwind of the cyclones to get into faster. So, let's say there is a year where there is no cyclone, and what do you think, that she will follow the traditional route where she was following, or again that this route?
So we don't know the story so much. What I've tried to tell you is from a very small sample size, 15. Out of that 15, two birds seem to show this kind of a pattern, seem to be sensing that there is a cyclonic formation happening. And so they're responding to that in a very positive way, that is heading into it, waiting for the cyclone to make landfall. So we truly don't know. And I suspect if two of the birds that we have tracked out of the millions, there could be a sizable number of other birds also responding positively to it. And we also know that it's not that they're just flying alone. They're also usually with other birds, other members of the same species flying through. Now, the second part of your question, what happens if there is no cyclone? So if there is no cyclone, they will just continue to fly. They don't get that additional benefit of, they have to get back.
They will follow their regular.
They will go back. So coming to that question, this year, it's raining here, or there is some thunderstorms here in southern India also. There's no cyclone formed. I was in fact talking to them in the morning. There's no cyclone formed. Otherwise, usually when the birds are crossing into Gujarat towards end of April, there is usually a report of a cyclone is forming. So let's wait and watch.
There is some indication.
There is some indication. So we don't know.
Onset vortex, there will some indications seen in the extended range.
Yes. Yes.
And
Geo
so
works.
Yes.
so the two birds you tracked, like those followed this went to Tamil Nadu. Those two birds were female or one male or female?
Both were female. But then there could be males also. Some males could also be doing this.
15 samples I only do were the females.
There were a number of males too. All of the males went up. So the story seems to fit. Okay. But yes, the gut
What's the-
feeling and yes.
Just
Last question.
Then you can ask me if you have more questions. We can ask.
Yeah, we
for
can
the
move
tea.
on to the.
We can have the tea and
Have the questions taken there.
Wonderful talk. I was just curious how you quantified what percentage of the regurgitated pellet was termites, like what methodology
that is the
used.
craziest lab work that we did. I told you we are always out in the field, but this one I had to force a student of mine to sit under a microscope, count the number of termite heads that were visible in the pellet. So it was crazy. In one pellet, he could count 250 termite heads. So based on, so it's a frequency of occurrence of a particular insect part that is distinguishable. Okay, so
5% of the pellets you were seeing had termites in it.
Yeah,
Yes.
we had some.
95%. So we did a certain select number of pellets, I think about 50 pellets. We tried to strike a balance as to how much time that my student would spend trying to count each of these heads. Otherwise, he was ready to leave the job and go away. Okay, so I said, okay, decide, okay, fine. If a pellet has more than 50 termite heads, then it's very likely that it has almost 100% termites on it. It doesn't have anything else. So that way, you come up with a measure. And you know that we
Villages.
something like 1,200, 1,500 pellets we examined.
Yeah,
And there could be many other termites or many other insects. There may be soft-bodied insects which never showed up. Okay, so we don't know. Yes.
Thanks, Suresh, for a wonderful
Thank you.
story. Connecting with the monsoon, the wind, cyclone, and everything. And all of these elements are changing as well. The monsoon winds are changing both over the sea. We see along the coastal areas like close to Somalia and other those regions, monsoon winds are getting stronger, while over land it's getting weaker. And there are more fluctuations as well. The rains are also changing. So hopefully this might have some impact on these species as well. And hopefully with more and more data, we will, and with some modeling as well, and with stronger collaborations, transdisciplinary studies and all, we can crack some of these linkages and know better. Yeah. Thanks for coming here, giving a wonderful talk. Thank you very much.
It's my
We'll
pleasure.
move on to the tea and have more discussions.
Thank you so much.